are some problems that you don't require work? Yes. But remember, the rule is not do you need to show work, but can you show work? If it's a vocabulary question, typically you cannot show work. But if it's a math question, you can tell me at least what buttons you press in the calculator. And we're going to get started. But we're not going to do geometry, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah. Okay. Hourly rates and pay periods. So when do you get paid? How can you get paid? How much should you get paid? If you got your earbuds, earpods, and stuff in, let's go ahead and take those out and put them in your backpack. The phone stuff in your backpack. I don't think I do, Kayla. I used to, but I think I'm out. I do not have one. Sorry. Okay. So, the math question all the kids ask their math teachers, when am I going to ever use this in the real world? Well, for God's sake, every day, right? If you don't learn anything, you got to make sure that you're being paid for the work you do, right? And what you're entitled to get paid. Are all people honest when it comes to money? No. They are not, right? So, maybe your boss is, maybe your boss isn't. Probably is. They don't stay in business really long most times if they're not. But you need to be able to hold them accountable. You need to say, wait, I worked 35 hours. My hourly rate is $20.50. If you multiply those together, this is what I make. My deductions are this percent. If they're not, you need to be able to look at your check and go, wait, that's not right. If you work regular hours plus overtime hours, you need to be able to compute that where you can hold your boss accountable. Right? They have to pay you, legally are required to pay you for the hours that you work. But if you don't catch them, and maybe it's a mistake, maybe it's them being dishonest, but if you don't catch it, then you don't get it, right? The police are not going around to all the McDonald's and making sure all those employees are getting the right pay, right? Do they have audits and stuff? For sure they do. But they're not overly concerned about that amount of money, right? But you are, because that amount of money to you is big money, right? Money, the time spent, money that you could spend, the time that you could have spent someplace else if you've gotten paid for it. I'm going to have you guys read the vocab and kind of fill those in on your own. It goes a little bit faster and it's a little less boring. You've got a word bank at the top for this first slide, so go ahead and read the questions. If you need to use your phone to translate, take a picture of it, go ahead and do that. But you should be filling in 1 through 4. So reading these and using these words. Albert, if you need your translator, take a picture. You said the translate, or we take the picture and translate it for you. So we're doing this right here. If you finish the first section, you want to go to the key terms. Exercise 2, you can do that as well. And then we're going to go through a little bit quicker with one slide short, getting all the way through it last period. I got to remember to make sure I'm not taking too long this time. I'm going to go ahead and close your Chromebook app. We don't need that. Go ahead and close your Chromebook app. If you did exercise 1, go ahead and do exercise 2 if you want. blank. This means their paycheck amounts are automatically deposited electronically into the bank accounts on or before payday. What are we going to put there, Kenny? Direct deposit, that's right. Anybody in here get paid with direct deposit? Anybody in here still get paid by check? One of the good things about direct deposit is you usually do get paid earlier than if they sent your check, because it transfers over a little bit early. Most part-time jobs that students hold pay a set amount for each hour they work, and what do we call that, Kate? Number 2? Hourly rate. Hourly rate. Certain jobs require the employee to work only a specified number of hours per week. Those are the employees. What kind of hours did we say those are? Sincere, number 3. Regular hours. And employees sometimes work more than their regular hours, and these extra hours are more than the full-time number of hours. And we call these what, Patrick? Number 4. Overtime hours. Did you guys finish exercise 2? Most people did, so we'll go ahead and go on. The blank is the hourly wage an employee receives for any time worked over the regular hours. It is usually greater than the rate for regular hours. So which one would that be? What do you think, Kamari? Number 1. And it's up here now. The blank is the hourly wage an employee receives for any time worked over the regular hours. So look up here. Which would it be? Any time over. Overtime hours. Now these are also overtime, but they're specific, right? So the one we want is just the general overtime hourly rate. When the overtime is 1.5 times the regular hourly rate, what do we call that, Savannah? 1.5 overtime. When the overtime rate is twice the regular hourly rate, it is called, what do we call that? Let me say it wrong. Let's say it right. Soraya. Double time pay. Your total pay, including any overtime before any deductions, is called your what? Adrian, what do we call that? Number 4. The gross pay, that's right. And lastly, blank is the lowest hourly rate that can be paid to an employee based on federal and state laws. What is that, Miana? Minimum wage. And in Florida, it's $13 an hour. I confirmed that this morning. Okay, moving on. We're going to use this terminology. We're going to be going from longer pay periods to shorter pay periods, converting our salary back and forth. Shorter pay periods to longer pay periods. We have to be able to convert annual salary to shorter pay period equivalent. So Carlos earns X dollars bi-weekly, expressed as annual salary algebraically. So bi-weekly and semi-monthly, those are the two that are confusing. Bi-weekly means you get paid every 2 weeks. If you get paid bi-weekly, then you have 26 pay periods in a year. If you get paid semi-monthly, remember that's twice a month. And since there's 12 months in a year, twice a month means you get paid 24 times a year. So that is a difference when you're converting. You've got to keep those straight. So the expression we can use, we can just take, if we want to go from bi-weekly to annual, smaller to bigger, you multiply. So 26 times X. In this case, if it's annual bi-weekly salary is $2,500, we want to know it's annual, we just multiply 26 by the $2,500. And that would be a $65,000 annual salary. You're going to write everything I'm writing. Don't just write the $65,000 and you don't get credit for your notes. Christina is also paid bi-weekly, but her salary is $37,000 for the year. That's our annual salary. Now we're going to go from the bigger, the longer pay period to the shorter one. So we're not multiplying now. What's the inverse of multiplying? What do? We're going to divide this time. So we're going to take that annual salary and not multiply, but divide by 26. 26 pay periods. We're dividing her annual, the whole year's salary, by the 26 pay periods, and gives you $1,423.08. All right. So this is the semi-monthly pay period. So now it's going to be either we're either going to multiply or divide by 24 because that's the number of pay periods you get paid in a year if you get paid semi-monthly. So Alex is paid semi-monthly and his annual salary is Y dollars. Express his semi-monthly salary algebraically. In other words, what do I do with the salary? Annual salary to get his semi-monthly salary. Well, we divide it by 24. So annual salary divided by 24 gives you his semi-monthly salary. What does 76.8K mean? What does 76.8K mean, Kylan? $76.8 thousand? No. Right, 76.8 times 100,000, right? So it's $76,800, right? You gotta be careful. $76,800. Remember, all you do is take the 76.8K is 1,000. So 76.8 times 1,000. Is that 76,800 number. If you make annually $76,800 and you get paid semi-monthly, you get paid $3,200 twice a month. So example 3, we went from annual to semi-monthly. For number 4, we're going to go from semi-monthly to annual. So we're going to multiply or divide here. Then we're going to multiply or divide here. Multiply, right? So his semi-monthly salary is $1,239. We're going to multiply it by 24. And his annual salary is $29,736. Okay. Maureen is a manager at a local Chicken King restaurant. Her regular hourly wage is $15.70. If she regularly works 40 hours per week, what is her regular weekly pay? How do we find that? Yeah. How do we find out what Maureen's regular weekly pay is? If she works 40 hours a week and she makes $15.70 an hour. What do I multiply? What are those hours and how much she makes? Perfect. That's all I want. $628. Melanie, I saw you move your weight. Roger regularly works 8 hours per week at a rate of $D per hour. Express his annual salary algebraically. What do you think that 52 stands for here, guys? 52 times H times C. What does the 52 stand for? Not hours per week. So not hours per day. So we're talking about a weekly salary, and we want to convert it. Say it again. The weeks in a year, right? The weeks in a year. So 52. That's the number of weeks times H is his number of hours times C is how much you make per hour. So if you want to know how much you make in a week, it's just hours times rate, right? But if you want to know how much you make in a year, it's the number of weeks in an hour times the number of hours in a week times the rate per hour. That's all we're saying. So if he works 32 hours per week at a rate of $12.75 per hour, what does he make annually? So that is, what does he make for the entire year in 52 weeks? So 52. His number of hours, they said, is 32, and the rate he gets paid per hour is $12.75. And if you do that on your calculator, you get $21,216 per year. Okay. If Mary Ann earns Y dollars per hour regularly, express her hourly overtime rate algebraically if she is paid time and a half. So time and a half means it's multiplied by 1.5. That's what that 1.5y means. Multiplied by 1.5. So if her regular rate is $13.25, we can find her overtime rate by multiplying it by 1.5. So it's 1.5 times 13.25. So they're encouraging you to work over your normal hours by paying you more money per hour. And that would be $19.88. Can you send checker? So this is her overtime hourly rate. If she works over the set hours that her boss says she has to work each week, he agrees to pay this rate for her overtime hours. If Maureen from example 5, so we're going to go back to example 5 right here. It says that if she works overtime and receives an hourly rate of 1.5 times her regular hourly rate, what is Maureen's hourly overtime rate? So her regular rate, when we look back over, we saw it's $15.70 per hour, right? So her overtime rate, since she also gets paid 1.5 times, time and a half overtime, we take 1.5 and multiply by her hourly rate. And that will be $23.55. Remember, you get to use your notes on your test. I'm also giving you a grade for your notes. Sorry? You get to use your notes on the test, but you have to have the hard copy intact as the notes written by you. And you do submit them to me when you turn in your test at the end of class. So you can't borrow someone else's notes for the day for the test. They can't borrow yours. You have to have your hard copies written in your handwriting. Can't print them off a computer or anything like that. All right, example 9. Ron works regularly 40 hours per week at a rate of X dollars per hour. Last week he worked Y overtime hours at time and a half. Expresses total weekly salary algebraically. So this is just a little formula we can use to find it's whatever he's going to get paid. If he works regular hours plus his overtime hours. His regular pay, since his regular work week is 40 hours, is 40 times his hourly rate. If he works overtime, then you add 1.5 times his hourly rate, and then times the number of hours he works overtime. So this Y means something a little bit different than it did in our last one. I don't really love, but it is what it is. So if we can find the regular pay, we can find the overtime pay. We add them together, that's the total pay. This is gross pay. So Ron's weekly salary, what would Ron's weekly salary be if he works 52 hours at an hourly rate of $11.55 per hour? Well, they started by finding his overtime hours, so let's do that first. Standard number of hours is 40, but they're telling us he works 52. So overtime hours, or in this case, the Y is 12. So wherever there's a Y in this expression, we're going to plug in 12. Wherever there's an X in this expression, we're going to plug in his hourly rate. That's $11.55. So there's an X here and an X here. $11.55 goes in both those spots. There's a Y here. So 12 goes in that spot. Does that make sense? And remember, if you don't see an operation in between, that means multiplication. So this is 40 times X plus 1.5 times X times Y. So 40 times his regular hourly rate is how much his regular pay is. So this is his regular pay. He didn't work any overtime. That's his regular pay. Now to find his overtime pay, we take that 1.5, multiply it by his rate, X, and then multiply it by the number of hours. So 1.5 times his regular rate, and he works 12 hours overtime, and that's how we get his overtime pay. So this is just his overtime pay. Now we add them together and we have his gross pay. 462 regular pay, 207.90 overtime pay. Add them together to get his gross pay. Once you're ready, read example 10. Read example 10 to yourself. And tell me how many hours overtime she's going to work. Read number 10 and tell me how many hours overtime she's going to work. Jada's earned $16 per hour. If her regular hours are 40 hours per week, and she receives time and a half overtime, find her total pay for a week in which she works 45 hours. So how many hours does she work overtime? Elton? Say it again. So I just read it. So let's do it again. They tell you Janice's regular hours are 40 hours, and it wants us to find out how much she gets paid for a week in which she works 45 hours. So how many overtime hours does she work that week? How do you get 5? Let's let Elton answer if I call him, okay? How do you get 5, Elton? Right, so 45 minus 40. That's all I wanted you to tell me. Yep, that's exactly right. So that's her overtime hours. So that's the y in our expression. This 16 is the x in our expression. They're asking for her total pay, which remember is the same as her gross pay. So the next thing we're going to plug in, we're going to find her regular pay. For 40 hours at $16 an hour, she would make $640. Now for her overtime pay, she also gets paid time and a half, so still the 1.5 times her hourly rate of 16 times the number of overtime hours she works, 5 hours. And so that's her overtime pay. The sum of those is her total or her gross pay. So 640 plus overtime 120 means she makes $760, and that is her gross pay. Okay. We have 3 left. So these 2 examples, we don't know the hourly rate. They're going to give us all the other information, but not how much they make per hour, and we have to find out how much they make per hour. So these are not as common sense problems. It's pretty common sense. If I work 10 hours, I get paid $20 an hour. 10 times 20 is how much money I make, right? But these, they're not asking that. They're asking us to use all the other information and give them the hourly rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that same formula. We're just going to plug in different things. So we're going to start with the 40 times x, where x is the hourly rate, plus the overtime pay, because it's time and a half. This is still going to be the 1.5 times x times y, where y is the number of overtime hours. And that we have to know equals the gross pay. So when you have an equation, as long as you have all the variables except for one, we can always solve for that last one. Samantha's a waitress and she worked 40 hours a week last week plus 7 hours overtime at the time and a half rate. Her gross pay is $611.05. So we just take these numbers they give us and we plug back into this equation. They told us she got 7 overtime hours, so we should know that our y is 7. So when we see a y in our equation, we replace it with a 7. So that's what we're going to do. 40 times the hourly rate that we don't know, plus 1.5 times the hourly rate that we don't know, times 7, that's the overtime hours, equals her gross pay, which we do know. Now we simplify 1.5 times 7. I think it's 1050. Did it a couple of times today. Feel free to check me if you like. I'm going to combine my variables here to get 50.5x equals 611.05. I'm going to divide 611.5 by 50.5 to get my x alone. I'm isolating my variable to find out my hourly rate. So the hourly rate is $12.10 per hour. Any questions? Okay. Jillian worked her 40 regular hours last week plus 2 overtime hours at a double time rate. So this is very similar, but not exactly the same. How is that formula going to be different than the formula number 11, Lawson? What do you think? Yes, so here where we put 1.5, we just put 2. That's the only difference. So we're going to do 40 times regular hours plus 2 times regular hours times the overtime hours equals the gross pay. So here, we're still looking for our x. Our x is our unknown. We do know our y. What is our y, Chantal? So look up here, y is the number of overtime hours. So in this problem, how many overtime hours did she work? Yep, that's all we need. So it's 40 times the x we're solving for, plus 2 times x times 2 equals her gross pay of $484. 40x plus 4x. Simplifying and going down. 44x equals 484. Undo multiplying by dividing by 44, and we know that x is going to be equal to $11 per hour. Any questions? Does that make sense, Kamari? No? Kamani, any questions? Good? Dry, you good? Ezra, you good? Tyler, any questions? Okay. We done to the last one? Okay. This is another piecewise function. Remember, these look really ugly, but they're really just 3 separate equations or formulas. You just got to decide which one to use. You don't use them all. If Giovanna gets paid a regular pay rate of $R for 40 hours worked, she is paid at a time and a half rate of up to 16 overtime hours worked and a double time rate for any overtime hours worked greater than 16 hours. So we haven't talked about the fact that you might get paid different overtime rates, right? Maybe your boss likes for you to work overtime, but it does not feel like it's that big of a deal for you to work 5 hours overtime. So maybe he pays you just a little bit more for 5 hours overtime. But if you work a lot overtime, maybe that saves the business a lot of money because they don't have to hire an extra employee. They don't have to offer them benefits and all kinds of things. Or they don't have to buy insurance for that person. So maybe they think it's worth, if you are willing to work a lot of extra hours, they will pay you a lot more per hour over your regular work week. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is like a little formula here that your boss would use and you would use to check to make sure you got paid the right amount if you work overtime. So Z is just the hours worked. R is the hourly rate. All right. Everything is based on how many hours you work. If you work 40 or less, that's regular hours for Giovanna. So she gets paid, that's wrong. Yours should say ZR. Does yours say ZR? Yeah. Okay, yours should say ZR there. So Z times R. So however many hours she works, she gets paid her hourly rate, so that's a multiply, right? So 40 or less. If she works more than 40, then maybe they think it's not worth that much more, they pay them time and a half. So anywhere between 40 hours, so more than 40, but less than or equal to 56 hours, they're going to pay them time and a half. Above 56 hours, that seems excessive to me as well, they're going to pay them double time for every hour over 56 hours. Not under, right? They have a different overtime rate for under 56 hours. So what we're going to do is just to decide which of these pieces. This is a piecewise function, and there are 3 pieces, right? So if her gross pay, find her gross pay if she works for 30 hours. So that's what we're going to do. So gross pay for 30 hours. Which piece do we use for 30 hours? Piece 1, piece 2, or piece 3? What do you think, Mason? Piece 1, piece 2, or piece 3?
2.
So 30. Does 30 fall between 40 and 56? 1. Right, so we're going to pick piece 1. So Z times R. Z is the number of hours 30, and they tell us her rate is 28.35. Real quick, I'm going to show you. I did put the decimal calculator on your home page, and I struggled with this last problem later, so I'm going to show you. You can always go here, and this is going to be the calculator that's in your test most of the time. 30 times 28.35. Enter. I put the wrong thing in. That's the other thing that I can show you on that. I meant to do that. Let's say I meant to do that. 28.35. I can see that I plugged in the wrong amount because it leaves my display up there, right? So it's $850.50. If Giovanna works 52 hours, so B says she works 52 hours. Are we going to use piece 1, piece 2, or piece 3? Kylan, are we going to use piece 1, piece 2, or piece 3? 2, because 52 falls in between 40 and 56. So we're going to use this rule here. So 40 times her regular pay plus 1.5 times her regular hourly rate, I should have said, times the number of hours she works. In this case, this is her Z, right? 52 minus 40. And we can use that decimal calculator, and you can see exactly. You can enter it just like this on the calculator. We're going to clear it out. So it's 40 times 28.35. Plus 1.5 times 28.35. Parentheses. What did I write? Parentheses, 56 minus 40. Yeah, 50 what? 52 minus 40. Close the parentheses. And equal. So it should be $1,644.30. Your handheld calculator that we use in here, you can also see your display line, but it's not as long as this one, so it's not quite as user-friendly. Remember, this is money. And the last one they asked us to find is how much she'll get paid if she works 63 hours in a week. So her Z now is 63. So is that piece 1, piece 2, or piece 3? Sincere? 3, that's right. So we're going to use this rule. So remember, on your paper, you're going to show me the work. And the work is just what you're plugging in the calculator. 40 times the rate plus 1.5 times the rate times 16 plus 2 times the rate times your hours minus 56. And this is one that's really great to use the decimal calculator on. Dadnabbit. What's happening? There it is. I'm trying to be able to see this and use my calculator in case you're wondering what the heck I'm doing. All right, so we're going to use the calculator and enter so we can see it. So it's 40 times 2835 plus 1.5 times 28, and you could use the parentheses or the multiplication button, 2835. And then I use parentheses next, so you could use parentheses there, plus the last piece, 2 times 2835 times 63 minus, is it 56? Yeah, minus 56. So, do you see what I did wrong there? That's the beauty of this calculator. I can see that I messed up where it's not as easy to see on the other. So okay. So it's $2,211.30. So that is the beauty of this Desmos calculator, and you will have access to this on all your assessments, I'm pretty sure. If not, you will have your handheld, but I know later tests we went ahead and put the Desmos calculator in. It's not a real hard thing to do, so we probably will. So once you're done, you can scan it. Oh, do we have one more? Oh, okay. Phew, almost forgot it again. All right, Michaela, actually, I didn't forget it last year, but I did run out of time. Michaela signed a 5-year contract for a new job. Her starting salary is $67K per year. How much is $67K? Yes, K equals 1,000. So $67K is $67,000. If they review her work and they say that her work is satisfactory, they will give her a salary increase of 3% each year. What is the salary in 5 years to the nearest dollar? Use the geometric sequence formula provided below. So, I know, Madeline says, oh no. You don't have to know the formula. If they want the formula, they will give it to you. All right? You probably won't even have to know this part. But the N just stands for the number of years, so the N is 5, right? The starting amount, well, what does she start at? $67,000. Her rate of increase is 3%, but we do want to put this in as a percent in this weird formula. And the ending amount, A sub N, that's what we're looking for. So that would be her salary in 5 years. So this is the formula. If you plug these things in, this is the unknown. We can't plug a 5 in there because we want to know what her salary is in 5 years. So A sub 5. The beginning amount we said was $67,000, right? That's all that means. It's always times 1 plus whatever the percent is as a decimal. And then it's always raised to the number of years minus 1. I will tell you, you do have to put parentheses around this unless you just simplify it before you put it in your calculator. So if you want to be able to put in your calculator straight across, you are going to need parentheses there. So I would just stop here if you were me and let my Desmos calculator do it for me. I'm going to show you how to put that in the calculator. So we're going to clear it out. We're going to put in the 67,000, left parentheses, 1 plus 0.03, close our parentheses. We're going to raise it to a power of 5 minus 4. So the exponent button on here is 8 sub b. If we want to square it, it goes there, but if we don't, we're going to raise it to parentheses, 5 minus 1. Oh, it didn't do minus 1. Close my parentheses, equals. So 67,000 left parentheses, 1 plus 0.03, close our parentheses, raise it to the power of parentheses 5 minus 1. So her salary after 5 years, if she gets all of her, basically her bonuses, $75,409.09. So the death load calculator just says death load calculator from the corner of your home page all the time. You can scan it to make your notes if you have not done so already. Yeah, we're not going to do the extended ones. Sincere. All the way back, baby. There's a garbage can right over there next time. Carol, I think you're just creeping towards the door. That's right. Don't worry. Oh, you got to record. Stop the recording.